السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على إمام المرسلين وعلى آل أصحابه أجمعين ما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakallah khair for coming. This was a bit short notice because I think both me and Saleha is quite busy, and just getting her in quickly was a bit of a task for both of us, subhanallah. So just a quick introduction. My name is Fariha. I work in Islamabad, Rawalpindi. This is where I live. I am a student holistic midwife. I'm a childbirth educator. I am a VBAC practitioner, as well as an innate postpartum practitioner also. For those in Islamabad, I'll be talking to you a lot all about that in the near future, inshallah. And I'm also currently in training with the Body Ready method. Now, Saleha, alhamdulillah, you may notice from her accent, is a fellow Brit. And I remember when I first connected with her in her previous pregnancy, it was just so nice to hear her voice, because I felt I was probably homesickness, missing home, although it's not home anymore. And it was nice actually meeting somebody else, another expat in Pakistan, and having gone through a system in the UK and then addressing the system here in Pakistan. So I'm gonna let Saleha continue, inshallah. And just Saleha, if you could just introduce yourself, and then so Saleha lives in Karachi. And then a bit of background of your previous pregnancies and your births, especially the one before this. And then we'll talk about this year, inshallah. So off you go.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I'm Saleha, as Faria mentioned. I'm from the UK. Me and my family, we're a homeschooling family. We moved to Karachi, Pakistan, 4 years ago, I think 2019, October, for a better life for the kids, I guess, alhamdulillah. I've got 5 kids now, mashallah, 4 girls and a boy. My first 3, they were born in the UK. And I think my 4th was born here, but it was a cesarean. And the first 3 were natural births. So the experience of a cesarean was a little bit scary and daunting. And the previous 3 births, although they were natural, they were not totally intervention free. And I had no idea about what I assumed they were natural births because they were vaginal births. I had no idea that, there was something even more than that, better than that. So I accidentally came across a Mani birth course through one of the homeschooling mums, and I was curious. I joined it, and alhamdulillah, there were 2 courses, but I came across Freya's, and Freya was like you said, a UK British expat, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go there with her. But it was just, alhamdulillah, a couple of years ago, that was just what I needed at the time, because I was feeling homesick. I was, even the kids were, and I was in a new medical environment because I was used to the UK medical system. I knew how inside out. I've worked in it and outside it, and my biomedical background and everything. So alhamdulillah, I had an idea of what to expect. But here in Pakistan, I had no idea. One second. Sorry, the baby. So I was a bit worried. What will happen? How am I going to manage? Who am I going to go to? Can I trust anyone? And alhamdulillah, Amani birth kind of prepared me to at least think about having, least intervention, ways I can deal with the birth, from mindset to spirituality to even physical need, because all of it together has a compound effect, I think, on the kids as well, on the birth. Lots of things happened along the way on my this is, in 2021 I had my cesarean child, Zoha. So that was 2 years ago. And at the beginning of the pregnancy, I was fine. I was actually quite happy-go-lucky. I was quite happily going along with the course. But towards the end of the pregnancy, I had some news, and it was just devastating to me, personal news. And it kind of affected everything. Like, I just mentally went down. Physically, I went down. And hang on, just one second.
Take care of your baby, inshallah.
I couldn't make sense of anything, and so yeah.
So I was just going to jump in there and say, while you're taking care of your baby, during this time, so Saleha was quite one of those active members of the group, and she had, did all the activities and stuff. And then I didn't really hear from her for quite a while after that. And she was really prepared, mashallah, and she was like getting everything ready. And then I just didn't hear from her for a very long time. I think she did the course sort of mid-pregnancy, and then she went on and did her own thing. But then something happened, and she was the one, like, I thought, she was pretty confident, and she was worried about pain relief. I remember that time she was worried about pain relief, which is quite relevant to her new story. And I was thinking, she's got it. She knows what to do. She's got her head screwed on. And then it was quite a while and I hadn't heard from her. And then I messaged her, how's she doing? And she said, I'm having I booked a cesarean, I think for next week, or you already had it. I can't remember. My baby's breech and, I'm having, there was a few issues. And I thought, subhanAllah, this is not like her. She's, she knows her stuff. Something else going on. And it wasn't until after her birth that she told me about some other issues that were going on. And it all made sense. It's quite an important lesson because, we do all the work, but if we don't, address our emotional needs, then this affects our body physically. And just the way we approach life itself and our body has the repercussions. SubhanAllah. So SubhanAllah, this was somebody that I thought, oh no, she's not going to go through this. But alhamdulillah, she did. She did have that birth the way it had to happen for her at that time. And this was, I think, an experience for her that actually made her think twice, thrice, many times when she went into her next pregnancy. So continue, Saleha.
Yeah, so, towards the end of the pregnancy, I was told I had high blood pressure and the baby was breached. So because of those two things, I had to have a cesarean. Now, looking back, I don't think either of those were any, reason to have the cesarean, because I had the same thing this time, but this time I was very determined. And then last time I went in for the cesarean and I found out it was an elective, which means that you choose yourself. The doctor told me it was an emergency. And I was like, okay. So everyone was worried, including my husband. He was like, no, you've got no choice. I don't want you to, something to happen to you. And so when I looked at it, I told him, this is an elective. This is not right. But it was too late. It was already booked in. So I said, okay, fine. I accepted it. And you know what? To be honest, maybe at the time that's what I needed, because the postpartum of that pregnancy probably was the best postpartum I've had, because everybody was running around after me, from my mother-in-law to my kids to my husband. And everybody, and I literally did not come down from my room for a good couple of months, even when guests came. So that was like the best postpartum I've ever had. So looking back, maybe it was necessary for me, and that's what Allah planned. And then I kind of spending that time with the baby, just me and the baby, really, really helped. Because during the course, Faria did mention about talking to your baby and connecting with your baby. And I'm telling you, subhanAllah, this baby that I have, the cesarean baby, she's one of the closest children that I've, of all my children, she's the closest. She knows. If I look at her, she knows what I'm thinking, subhanAllah. Anyway, so fast forwarding a year on, just over a year, so she was born in 2021, then 2022, no. Well, basically, I found out a year later that I was, just over a year later, that I was expecting again. I was first initially horrified. And then secondly, I thought, you know what, no, it's going to be fine. Then I contacted Faria and she was like, she didn't want to say anything. I could hear it in her voice. She's like, it's okay. It can be done. It can be done. And I was worried because after a cesarean, they tell you that you shouldn't conceive until after 2 years, so that your tissues, internal tissues, can heal. I personally, over the last 2 years, I've learned to listen to my body, my instincts, and I really did feel fine, even though my food intake was not great. It wasn't not 100% as it should be, but I did feel fine. And so I thought, it should be okay. To a few people, I tried my best to stay away from the hospital, which wasn't possible. I tried to get a midwife in because I thought maybe I could get a home birth. I spoke to someone I found out locally that had a home birth after a cesarean. So I went to meet her, and she was just inspirational. And I thought, if she can do it, so can I. I can try. You just have to be positive. And then Faria added me to a lot of groups and then we were going through a lot of the previous birth stories that gave me strength, gave me motivation. And, alhamdulillah, I thought, what, it will be fine. And I did keep going this time, not to see the doctor, but I kept making sure that I had a scan to check if the baby was breached, which she was for a long while. But alhamdulillah, my tissue had healed. I did try to get that checked out, as much as possible, because I was worried about the rupture. But then again, positive thinking, tawakkul, and I thought, what, Allah wouldn't have made me have this baby or conceive even if I wasn't able to, because the same thing happened with the previous baby. So I was like, what, inshallah, it will be fine. And then, Faria was sharing a lot of videos and courses, and a lot of the things on her live sessions, including the brainwaves, really resonated, because it was almost like instinctually we were doing it, but we didn't realize. But that helped because I went into a deeper state of connection with the baby. I can't explain in detail. Maybe Faria, you can explain about the beta and the alpha waves and stuff. But it did it's like, when you slow down, I literally, that was naturally what I was doing when I was dealing with situations I was not able to control. And it was the only way I could cope with things, is just by going to a deep mental, almost meditation, but just blocking everyone out.
Yes.
And
so I'll just add in there. So with Saleha, when working with women or when supporting women and witnessing their journeys, it's very unique. Every person is unique and everybody's needs are unique. Now for Saleha, because I knew of her history and her current situation, her needs were very different. Yes, it was important for her nutrition. It was important for everything else. And on the back of my mind, I was thinking about, okay, last time breech baby, high blood pressure, we need to address this. Now for her to address this, it wasn't nutrition or exercise that was an issue. Although we did address this as well. And, alhamdulillah, it was enough to keep her mindful of these things. But more than that was her emotional well-being and having a calm central nervous system. Even though everything is chaos around you and unpredictable, when you don't realign this, it affects your whole body. And so for her, I knew if this was going to be addressed, then she would be able to deal with everything else. And it wasn't easy, because there were a lot of things going on, but and I know there's a lot of women that have the same issues or different issues. We're all affected by trials and tribulations, but it can take over, and it does affect our birth. It does affect our health. It affects our pregnancy. It affects our postpartum. It affects everything. But something that I felt when Sally is talking about, connecting to her baby, it's about having focus and having a goal and not losing focus. It's like separating the pregnancy, which I felt she did very well, is she's pregnant. Allah has blessed her with this pregnancy. And there was wisdom in it. So her focus, she separated that from everything else that was going on in her life. And this is what I found when I was speaking to her, was that, yes, all of this is going on, but alhamdulillah, what I noticed most about her was how, she kept referring back to Allah. Allah, put me in this situation, so He's going to get me through it. And I kept hearing this throughout in different ways. Whenever, sometimes, she had, a toddler and her other children, and there's lots of things going on. She wasn't even planning to birth in Karachi. She was making all these plans to go abroad and lots of different things, and actively doing all of these things. She even was going to move and sold all her things. SubhanAllah. And anyone that knows, especially a homeschooler that sells all their stuff, it's quite a lot. You've got a lot of work and an empty house. All of this weeks prior to her giving birth. So what she had to do and what she was referring to the brainwaves was actually slowing down mentally. Because by default, when you are pregnant, your brain actually slows down, but we often, ignore that. And by ignoring this, we actually are fighting our natural fitra of, becoming this, being able to connect to your baby and connecting to your womb and following your instincts. And this is where you get frustrations. This is where you get mood swings. This is where, other physiological conditions are presented in your body. So I felt that there was something unique about this journey I felt that Saleha had, and she managed to get this. And I could feel it in her voice. I could feel it in her actions. I could feel it when she was making her plans and preps. And when the obstacles came up, I was so surprised at how patient she was. Because when I say obstacles, I mean last minute obstacles. All of a sudden, everything just went 180 degrees. That I was very amazed at how, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? And she was like, mashallah, okay, alhamdulillah. I did istikhara, and let's go forward, subhanallah. And I think that, tawakkul Allah that she had was the reason that Allah made things easy for her. I truly believe that, mashallah. So you can share all the details, Saleha.
Well, just, it's making me laugh, but it wasn't funny at the time. Alhamdulillah for the good and Alhamdulillah for the bad. I always tell my children that, and they remind me of it as well. And so me and the kids, basically what happened was that my current situation changed, and so my husband went abroad to work. And while that was happening, I was waiting for my cesarean daughter's passport to come through, British passport. Because we wanted to travel to the UK to see my family. And I think this time, because I knew that there wouldn't be many people around to support me, including my husband, he was supportive, but supportive in the way that during the labor, I thought that during labor and, during the time in hospital, I needed somebody there with me, at least my sister. So I was trying to go abroad for that, so that I could have my mum and my sister there with me at least, or just someone, even a friend that I knew from, back in the day. So I just thought, inshallah, that will work out. I mean, there was enough time for the passports to come through, but that was another story that the British can't. Oh. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. That was just awful. Cut a long story short, basically. So right towards the end, my husband came to collect us. He'd had arranged a place in the UK for us to live and everything. We were going to sell up here. I currently live in Bahria Town, Karachi, so on rent. So we're going to sell up everything. He was going to come and do that while I take the kids, because the passports came the day after he came, basically. So all that was left was for me to go, but it had been pushed so far that I was in my 35th week, or actually it's probably 36th week, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. I'll just wear an extra big abaya. I'll just need a letter just in case anyone stops me. I have a letter to say from the doctor that, I'm okay to go. She wouldn't give it to me. And rightly so, and from her perspective as a medical doctor, professional medical doctor, she did the right thing, okay? But I was hoping that because this is Pakistan, that she would be able to, but she said, no, I can't do it. And then I went to another doctor, and she had already spoken to that one as well. Apparently they have WhatsApp group, and everybody confers, and that made me so mad. And I was really, really mad at this point. So much. I didn't tell this to anybody, actually, not even Faria, but I was so mad that evening that I almost cut myself. And because of that reason, my thumb had got infected, and then I ended up having to go to A&E to get that sorted out. That probably helped in a different way in terms of pain management. But anyway, and then I had another massive argument with my husband, and that was the breaking point. That all happened within a few days, and then so basically, let me just give you a timeline. Wednesday, my husband came from the UK. Thursday, he picked up the passport. So all the kids' passports came through. 3 of them were renewals, and 1 was a new British passport. So we all had our passports. Thursday, I was refused from the medical doctor. On Friday, I gave up, and I had this massive argument with my husband. That triggered some massive pain, and I thought I was going to lose the baby. But I prayed, and alhamdulillah, it was just the beginning. I realized the beginning of my contractions. These contractions, I didn't tell anyone actually, because I knew that if I told anyone, they'd be like, yeah, go hospital. And I didn't want to be in the hospital, because the longer you stay in hospital, it was just this thing that stay as little as possible in the hospital if you want least intervention. So that's what my plan was. I mean, my plan was now that I'm not going to move because they won't let me leave. So I'll be here for another year. Okay, it's fine. But my family in the UK were all prepared. My sister had taken leave. So had my brother. We were planning to get some furniture into the new place. I'd have planned everything. I was going to go to IKEA and blah, blah, blah. The kids had planned that, oh yeah, we're going to do this with Khala and this with Mamajan and blah, 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 their cousins. We were literally prepared. It was literally a couple of days. It was a matter of a couple of days. That weekend I had to go, but I couldn't. So I was devastated and I wasn't in a good place with my husband anyway. He didn't want to be at the birth. So I was going to be alone. And I'd already made up my mind that, you know what? The birthing is what I need to do. No one else can do it for me. So I need to, manage that. And I think the sessions that Faria held, each and every one, including the positions that help, even though I didn't read cover to cover of anything that she shared, but I did have it all in my head. And alhamdulillah, I was prepared because that Friday the contraction started. Saturday, they were not that significant enough, but I knew they had started. Sunday, I said to everybody, we're going to Imtiaz. I'm going to go and do all the shopping for the baby, which I hadn't done because I was leaving it until I get to the UK, and I was relying on my sister and everyone else to do that for me. I didn't have a baby seat or anything, so I went on Sunday to get what I could. I even got the emergency pack to, the cord cutting, clamping thing, the first aid stuff that you needed just in case, it happens outside or at home, which I wasn't planning, but it was an emergency thing just in case. I packed my bag for the hospital, and I did tell my husband, look, it's going to happen before you go, because he was going to go within a week anyway, because he came to get us and then he was going to go back because he's got work. So that was another point of argument, that he made all these plans to come and blah, 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 and I couldn't go now. So all this cost and blah, blah. We had a place in the UK as well to stay, so we had to cancel that. That was another extra cost. So it was just not a good situation. But I was like, you know what? This is what's meant to be. What can you do? And subhanAllah, my kids were like, they had sold most of their things, the homeschooling stuff, including the homeschooling stuff and their own stuff, because we couldn't take all our clothes, all our shoes, everything. So we got rid of half of them. So all our, literally our inventory, the clothes, the shoes, they were literally halved, quartered almost, so that they could fit inside one suitcase, because we weren't allowed to take more than one suitcase. Because we'd parceled so many times that it was just not cost effective anymore. So, because we were actually planning to go to live in the UK for a while. All that's changed now. But so anyway, so where was I? So basically, we got everything from Imtiaz. I had my bag packed for the car, the journey to the hospital. Monday morning, oh my God, the contractions were slowly after Fajr. It was actually the Hajj time that they started really strong because I woke up. And at that time, I think everyone ended up waking up. I woke up my husband because I was like, you know what, the contractions are getting closer. We need to start getting ready for the hospital. An hour or 2 hours later, we were still at home because my daughter, Zohar, the cesarean baby, she instinctually knew something was not right and that I was going to leave. And so she would not cry. She was constantly just crying. And so that delayed us going. My contractions were getting so strong, my kids were worried I was going to die. I found out later they thought I was going to die. But alhamdulillah, you know, every time I had the contraction, I remembered the deep breathing, the connecting, and just blocking everything out. I was having these contractions, subhanallah. The first time in my life I knew what contraction was. And I'm telling you, it's not as bad as everyone says. You know, in the movies and the media that we're kind of conditioned to believe that you have to be screaming your head off and you need to be sitting on your on the bed with your back. No, subhanallah, I was doing everything the opposite, and I was deep breathing. I wasn't screaming this time. I mean, I know for real, I was. One of my biggest concern was that I'd be, I don't know, screaming my head off, and just you know, when you know the worst that. One of my fears was that I'd scream and scream and scream and it traumatized most people around me. And that's one of the reasons why my husband was traumatized from the previous first 3 births. So the cesarean it didn't affect him that much because it was an operation. So this time it was, but that's one of the reasons he didn't want to be there, because he couldn't take it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to control the pain. But I didn't need it, subhanAllah, because I had my family around me, my kids around me, and Zoha especially. And alhamdulillah, I did actually at one point ask for, is it possible to have my daughter there with me at the birth, because all the hormones that you need to be able to help you, she was the one that, you know, provided that for me for some reason. I don't know how to explain it. And so alhamdulillah, she was there throughout the contractions. Alhamdulillah, Allah made it that way. Alhamdulillah. I even had a shower before leaving, and I had a couple of contractions. I thought, okay, this baby's going to come soon. So I told my husband, I told everyone, just go have breakfast, have to do something. I forgot to have breakfast. I thought I'd rather have a shower and be clean. And then I left I hadn't had any water, I hadn't had any food. So we just literally ran out because my daughter was just screaming. I had a contraction in the car, just before I got into the car. And before I got into the car, I'll tell you something. I forgot the plastic sheet. You keep a plastic sheet as an emergency in the car. Well, I forgot. I had it specially and I forgot it. But just before leaving, for some reason, I said to my son, can you just run upstairs and bring it? Because I think, you know, it might be useful. And I didn't ever imagine that I would actually need it in the car. But before getting in the car, with these strong contractions that were literally a minute apart, I put the sheet in the car for some reason. I don't know why. I still didn't think I needed it. I thought I'd managed to get there on time because the hospital wasn't that far. It was literally 15-20 minutes. And I thought I had time because my waters had not broken. So every time, the first 3 births, my waters always broke before, you know, my contraction started. But this time around, it was the opposite. And so I thought, you know what, my water's not broken. I've got these contractions, but I've still got a bit of time. I'll manage to get to the hospital. We called the hospital and they told us to go to emergency. And I went, oh my God, how am I going to have these contractions in the emergency around all these people? And I just kind of talked to Allah and I said, please help me. I don't want anyone around me, subhanAllah. I called my friend as well. And I told her, look, can you just reach there? This is a homeschooling lady. Her name's Javeria, a very good friend of mine. She was there during the last birth for Zoha. The reason I call her is because she's always fighting my court. She's the one that, you know, she knows about natural birth and stuff. And so she fought with them to keep Zoha unnecessarily out of NICU. And so this time I thought, you know what, definitely she's going to be there fighting for me. So with my husband. So I called her up. She didn't think it was going to be that early either. So she ended up coming. She ended up coming later. But before that, we were driving. Literally, we were 2 minutes around the corner from the hospital. And I was having these contractions, and the baby came, and it was just ironic that it was in front of Adventureland because it was an adventure, subhanallah. And my husband said to me, I said to him, I think the baby's coming. Because I couldn't stop the contraction, and I knew that this was it because they'd come so close, and it was crowning. It was crowning, and then literally, and I was thinking, how can the baby come? The water broke, and as the water broke, the baby came out. Subhanallah. It was just very, very close. And I'll tell you that all this time in the car, I wasn't sitting down. I was sitting backwards in the back seat with my holding the headrest and pulling on it. I'm surprised it didn't pull off. I was pulling it like they do in the position. You know when you pull the tree, when Mariam was holding the tree and pulling down on it? I literally was doing that with one leg on the seat and one leg off. And I was doing what I could in whatever position I could. And that's one of the other reasons I didn't want to go to emergency, because I was doing all sorts of positions at home, which were making it comfortable for me to bear the contractions, which is really strange because I never thought that contractions were bearable. But alhamdulillah, I can take a lot of pain, but literally it was almost like I didn't feel the pain when I was trying some of these positions. And it was just, kids were looking at me strangely, but alhamdulillah. And so in the car, if anyone had been looking, they must have thought, what the hell is going on in this car? And the baby came. I caught the baby, and I just said alhamdulillah because I didn't have to be in the hospital having this baby. I knew that the cord, I'd have delayed cord clamping, so I basically told my husband to stop the car, and he's like, oh my god, oh my god. And I said, look, it's fine. And I almost said this to him, but I didn't. I said, you're not the one who's having the baby, I am. But he was like, oh, I can't do that, I can't deal with this. And I was like, just stop the car, give me a towel, carry on to the hospital. So I got the towel, I wrapped the baby in the towel, and I just was so relieved that it was all over. Because when I got to the hospital, I didn't have to do much. And everybody from the porters to the doctor see me coming with a baby, and they were like, what? How did this happen? And they were just looking for something something went wrong. I said, is this fine? Is this fine? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. I'm fine. Just give me the baby. Just cut the cord and just give me the baby. Because I think it was about a couple of minutes. I did ask them, had the changed color? And the doctor was like, yeah, slightly, it has started changing. So then I said, okay, fine. Because they were like, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. And I went, I'm fine. They wanted to give me more medicine, and I was like, no. So yeah, and then my friend arrived, and she was ready to go to emergency, but I wasn't there, so she ran up, and she was shocked to see the scene and the baby in my hand. She was like, what? How did that? But she was just surprised but happy for me. However, I did have a postpartum hemorrhage, I think they say. I lost a lot of blood. And my friend, she was there when I passed out. So that was traumatic for her. But apart from that, I mean, Freya said that was normal. So
Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
you didn't actually hemorrhage. You bled, but you hadn't hemorrhaged. There would have been you would tell you hadn't bled, because of, you hadn't eaten that whole night and, not been hydrated, and just the whole situation of you going into the hospital, and the shock of the whole event. You all felt dizzy and you passed out, I think, when you went to the bathroom, but it wasn't a hemorrhage.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because it was dealt with pretty quickly. Once you slept and once you rested and once you, had something to eat and drink, which I think you knew because you're, also I spoke to you, quite soon after, and just speaking to you, it was quite clear because you would have felt it immediately. It was quite clear. He was laughing and joking. She was laughing and joking. Oh, look, this, oh, by the baby came and and everyone's so,
It was a high. Because after I spoke to you, I was literally down, and I think after I spoke to you, did I pass out before that? I don't know.
It was afterwards.
Yeah, because it was afterwards. My friend was telling me that I was shaking, and she was horrified. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But when I did come out of the bathroom, when I did come round, I was literally so emotionally drained. I was just crying, and everybody was like horrified. They were like, "It's okay, calm down." Even the doctors were like, "It's okay, calm down, calm down." And I was just crying, couldn't stop. And I called my husband. I said, "Please, just don't be so angry." I thought I was gonna go, seriously, but yeah, no, alhamdulillah. I think it was a high that got me through it. It was a high that got me through it, alhamdulillah.
Hannah, I mean, really, so once you have the baby, ideally that you actually meant to maintain that calm and relaxed sort of environment. So being wrapped up and stuff. Now, I think everyone's been listening in or can feel those emotions of, prior to the birth. They can feel I could feel it then, but I'm feeling it even more now. That there was a lot of stress going on. Not only then, I mean, alhamdulillah, you and birthing the baby was fine, but it was surrounded by people who were not happy. It was surrounded by stress. It was surrounded by, people saying, "Oh, there's going to be something wrong. There's a complication. This is not possible. There must be something wrong. I'm looking for complications."
Yeah, even my friend, they were like, one friend I spoke to, a homeschooler, she was just like, "Your age," like her basically the overall conversation was, and my daughter was listening, one of my daughters were listening, and it was like, "Your age, you can't have a natural birth after cesarean. That's so soon and so early. What about the and I was like, "It's gonna be fine. I'm fine." And she almost implied that I was just a very stagnant person and slow. So I wasn't active. So because of that, it's not likely I'm gonna have a natural birth. And I went, "Oh no, I am. It may not seem like that when you come around because I'm relaxed." I give off a vibe of very, calm, but I do a lot. And then I just stopped talking to her for a month, and I didn't speak to her until after a couple of weeks after the baby had been born, because it was just negative vibes, and it was almost like jealousy. I was like, come on.
SubhanAllah, I've actually noticed this a lot in a lot of the women that I've been speaking with in our group and just generally, that they keep hearing this. I don't know why, women put other women down. Like you said, maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's just conditioned thinking of what's happening in a normal birthing culture of, you have to be a certain weight, you have to be a certain physical fitness or whatever. And SubhanAllah, that's not the case. Mums in coma give birth naturally. This is not an issue. In fact, what I feel that is happening now is we're going to the other extreme. We're overdoing it. We're we should be doing this, we should be doing this, that is not actually the case. And I think this is what really helped you. I think you was very chilled out, alhamdulillah, but in a positive way, in the correct way, in the way where you was able to connect and follow your instincts. The reason why you knew what to do when you was at home was because you didn't actually tell anybody that you was in labor. You didn't tell everyone else what was actually going on. You was able just to connect to yourself and let your body lead. Those positions that you are able to do, and you have hypermobility anyway, you had to go into those positions because that's what you need. And this was just perfect for you. And we need to listen to this. And the problem is when we're not listening to this, and that often happens in an environment where you are managed, you're not able to do this, and that's why you do get difficult births, and that's why you do have painful labors. Because I know I've said this from day one when I've been doing this work, is actually it doesn't have to be painful. And I'm not just saying that. Pain is a perspective, and we did cover this in some of our sessions, but it truly is. And alhamdulillah, I'm glad you were able to really take that lesson and deep within you, because I think for your case it was even more important. So because it wasn't about, you don't need the perfect birthing environment, you don't need the perfect birthing team, because at the end of the day, like you said, I'm the one that's giving the baby, I'm the one that's going to be birthing the baby, nobody else. Even with your husband in the car, I mean, no, just give me a towel, that's what you need to do, and I'll deal with it. I mean, yeah, he has a messy car, which is not, I know he wasn't happy about, but alhamdulillah, you and your are healthy and safe. I think what happened with you also is when you did, Allah protected that scenario for you. When you went into the hospital and you had to deal with the doctors and everybody, and just the shock from everybody else, that affected you. Because when I spoke to you, it was before the fainting situation and everything else. You were joking and laughing, and I could hear how fit and well you are. Despite you had just given birth, you had been, you hadn't eaten, drinking all night, but you were still well, and that is a big sign. Our environment does make a difference, and it does affect our hormones. And that's what happened. And just to, let others know that you actually did discharge yourself later on that day, that same day. There was no, there
I
were no
was supposed to
complications, there
do
was,
that, yeah.
you had, any issues there. But it just goes to show that when there is a lot of tension around you, it creates tension. When there is a lot of people looking for complications, it will create a complication.
They couldn't find anything, so they came to me afterwards, and I think that's probably why I was not just once, 3, 4 times. They were like, "Oh, the ultrasound team came." They're like, "We have to check for rupture," and I said, "There is no rupture. I can feel it. I wouldn't be talking to you if there was a problem down there." And they're like, "No, but we have to check." And then because I hadn't had any water the whole night, my bladder was empty, and so uh, uh, I did drink like 2 liters of water, but my bladder hadn't filled up that fast yet because the rest of my body needed it. So like it just, and I was telling them, look, I've had 2 liters of water at least, if not more, but it's just because I'm dehydrated. You can look up at my lips, and I was telling them, look at all the signs, and they're like, no, but look at this bladder, it's an empty space, you've got no bladder. And I was like, yeah, okay. And it's just literally fighting with them, and then they would give me all these antibiotics. I said, what's this medicine? What's this medicine? They were trying to put drips on me. And I found out later that one of the doctors, the main doctor, consultant, she had actually given me something because I had lost so much blood. And I suppose it kind of helped me not knowing it. Maybe it just gave me that extra strength afterwards. But this is the problem. This is what I was running away from. And if I had stayed longer, I knew they'd end up giving me more medicines, because they were giving me one after. I said, "What is this? What is this?" And they were like, "Oh, this is antibiotics." I said, "I don't want antibiotics. I don't want this. I don't want that." And because they knew that I was questioning them, they kind of backed off a little, because I was literally like a Rottweiler, and my friend was there as well. And so she was like, "Well, this is not necessary." And they were trying to find something wrong with the baby. They were saying, "Oh, yeah, she's got low sugar." And I was like, yeah, but that's because I haven't eaten all night and she needs a feed. When she feeds a little bit, I was like, there's nothing wrong with the baby. She's breathing. She's fine. But alhamdulillah. One thing I forgot to say, and I don't know how it affects everyone, but it's the reason why I was able to deal with this whole scenario in the car is because there was training on the Amani birth course. They provide, training, not training, but like information on what you should do in an emergency, like having a baby in the car. And that was the first time round. So I had that at the back of my head. And this time round as well, there were lots of resources available to look at. So there was this preparation, and I had mentally prepared myself for worst case scenarios. So I had gone over my head that if I was to have a baby in the car, what would I need to do? If I had the baby at home, and in the beginning, I really wanted to have a home birth, but there was nobody around to be able to deal with it, because everyone was like scared. There was not even the midwife that I wanted. She was like, "No, I can't do this." So I was like, "Okay, fine. It's not meant to be." And then there was lots of information on in the groups that Freya was sharing, that about it's okay to have a cesarean, because when I had the cesarean the first time, I felt what's the word? I felt I had failed. And I don't know how to describe this. It's almost like I thought I had natural births, but they were all one was induced, one had two actually were induced, and they all had some kind of medication somewhere along the line, and I had help with it. Whereas with this one, alhamdulillah, nothing. So let's see how she turns out.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I mean, alhamdulillah, you had quite a good pregnancy, mashallah. You did actually take care of yourself. I did feel that, I think, better than the first time. And more importantly, despite, I think this time around, you actually had more issues to have to deal with compared to last time. And yet you were still able to kind of, focus on the right things at the right time. And I think this made a big difference. The initial, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just because I had to dig deep. I had to practice to learn to just turn everybody off, everyone's comments and things, because they were affecting me, and they would have made a difference if I had listened to anyone. And subhanAllah, the postpartum.
Yeah, go ahead.
The postpartum that I have, there's nobody around. There's no adult in my house, and yes, it has been difficult, but it has helped with the PND. Subhanallah.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah.
I mean, when we hear, I mean, we're always speaking to lots of others in the group, and they're talking about, not having anyone supportive or having these. I mean, it's really sad because it's not just the husband or the family; it's other women around us that are putting us down or giving us doubts. And sometimes, and the internet and media and your neighbor, your doctor, everybody, it's all around you. And I don't know if you remember that session that we did on who's in control. You really need to shut yourself off from everything. And with your particular circumstance, I think you managed this very well. And I think this was your survival. This was the way that you had to get through it. And even with your postpartum, I mean, I really do feel for you, subhanAllah. And I felt it from day one. And, I often talk about postpartum and how important it is and preparing for it. But everybody's circumstances is different, and you have to do whatever you can according to your circumstances and situation. But whatever we do have, we make the most of that. And even if you don't have anyone, you have Allah. And it's so important. It is so, so, so important that even if you do have everybody, Allah is still going to be the one that is going to navigate this. And forgetting that connection and forgetting to call on to Him, because I felt so many times when we were talking throughout that pregnancy was, and it keeps, when you told me about the birth and then prior to that, all I kept thinking was because she kept doing istikhara, she kept calling back to Allah, because when everything was bad, you was pretty calm. In a sense that, it could have gone easy another way. And may Allah protect you. May Allah reward you. May Allah continue to put blessings in your family, give you the strength that you need to journey the rest of this journey with your children, and be an example for your children, because at the end of the day, you are their role model. And I think you are doing a lot already, mashallah. And it's a journey that is continuous. It doesn't stop here, which I think because everything that we covered is not just about birth. And I think you realize this as well now, that it wasn't just about birth. It was also about life. It transforms the way you think about life and how you go beyond this. And this is preparation for motherhood, for womanhood, for just a believer being in this dunya, in achieving the akhirah. Because at the end of the day, this is what we're leading towards.
You know what? It's the tadabbur from Surah Maryam. Honestly, that plus the brainwave session that you had. Honestly, if the two things that anybody can do, just reflect on Surah Maryam, seriously, and look at the lessons you can get from that. And also the brainwaves, because it just helps in, like you said, it's just not just about birth, it's about general life, how to deal with things. And digging that, when people say digging deeper, I actually understood what that meant, because I was actually doing that. I was going, it was a very strange thing. And look, let me tell you, everybody here, that I'm not the most pious person. My name is Saleha, but I'm not the most pious person, Tika. But Alhamdulillah, it's possible to do all these things and get close to Allah. You don't have to be the most pious person. You don't have to, but it's your determination. I was determined this time around that I was not going to listen to even the doctors, because a lot of people, I have backlash from a lot of people saying that, how can you say that about doctors, this and that. There's nothing wrong with doctors. But I'm one of those people that stays away from hospitals and GPs and stuff, especially over the last 4 years, because I don't trust anybody in Pakistan. It's just one of those things. My cupboards that were full of allopathic medicines are now just half empty and full of natural things. And my garden, I'm growing stuff in the garden. My Masi came and she was like, I've got this and I've got that. I just told her, you know what? Because before I had so much medicine for fever for the kids. I used to top them up with the ibuprofen and paracetamol, turn by turn. Now I'm like, just go have a shower, relax, release your clothes, have a cool environment. Alhamdulillah, Surah Fatiha. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, you just have to, I don't know. Alhamdulillah. I just think that if we just try our best to get closer to Allah, Allah will run to you. Subhanallah. I think that's what's happened. And one of the biggest things I think is I had a lesson from the personal things that happened. And all of this was possible because of the personal issues that I had. And one in particular, especially this time, I was able to empty my heart of people from this dunya to fill it with Allah. Because that's probably the lesson I had to learn from it, that I was filling that space that was for Allah with people from this world. And that made a big difference to the way I was connecting to Allah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Saleha. You know, your birth actually directly affected a lot of births after yours. I think Ma has already mentioned that it helped her with her birth as well. And a lot of people are having difficult situations and they just don't know where to go. And I think this really does inspire many other stories, many other people in their lives as well. And something that you mentioned about just emptying your mind away or in your heart of just toxic people around you, give space to Allah. Yeah. Because this is what we don't realize, this is what's happening, and the diseases of our heart just builds and builds and builds. And we have, you know, we can't, I tell people connect and they don't know, they can't get that deep. And I know we've spoken quite a few times about getting deep. SubhanAllah, in order to get that, you have to release some things from yourself. And sometimes some people don't want to do that because it's not easy. It is difficult to connect from deep within because you're going to address emotions that you don't want to feel, but you have to feel them. And I think you felt them. And I felt, you know, I just feel my heart's full just listening to you. There was a lot of things that had to happen for you to get there. And that is a situation with trials and tribulations. You have to experience some things to get that closer connection to Allah, to recognize and identify that, okay, this is what I truly need. And it is not usually the things that I want. Going to the UK at that time was not the right thing for you. Having whoever around you was not the right thing because this was your journey and you had to learn, and this is the only way that you was going to be able to learn it. And this was going to be this way. And as a result, subhanAllah, this is sadaqah jariyah for you because a lot of people, you've given a lot of people hope, around you. Yes. You know, the amount of people that have been saying to me that, you know, we need to hear Saleha, because, you know, you mentioned it in one of our groups, one of our live sessions that we did. And you just mentioned a little bit, about it in the Divinely Designed. And, everyone's like, oh, we want to hear this story. You just had so much to share. I think it was just a few minutes that you spoke about it, but I thought, okay, we need to do this public. We need to share it with everybody else because, there are a lot of people out there who need help, who do not have anyone to go to. And this story can help others, inshallah. And I pray that it does do that and that everybody has someone to reach out to. And if anyone does have any questions, I'll open the WhatsApp group and you can ask questions there. I will share the recording. But I think it's really important to not just hear about these stories, but actually to learn lessons from and to see how we can grow together and how we can support each other as well. You know that somebody doesn't have family around them. You know that there's no adults in that house and they've just had a baby, or you know, they were going to move and they're not moving now and they must need help. They must need some support, you know, reaching out to them because we weren't designed to go through this alone, especially women. We need to be there for each other. So, you know, even if you have an opinion, hold back because that may not be what the person needs to hear right now. Just be there to listen and to support, to witness and to elevate them, not put them down. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Saleha. Is there any closing statement, any advice that you would like to share with everybody as we close the session, inshallah?
Yeah, I said this in the homeschooling session that I had a couple of days ago, that what other people think about you is none of your business.
Yeah.
I heard this somewhere in one of the videos, and it's true. because even in my postpartum, I had, it's not that I didn't have neighbors and friends coming, but everyone was full of advice. Oh, the baby's, is that the way to hold the baby? You haven't wrapped the baby up this way. And I'm like, I've had 4 kids. Don't you think that I will know how to deal with a baby? And I'll tell you something, that, the way that I'm dealing with this baby is instinctually. I'm not doing it the way everyone tells you to do it. So the way that I hold the baby, to the way that I speak to the baby, to the way that I feed the baby is totally different. So this batch of kids that I've had now is different to the batch that, I had previously in the UK. Subhanallah. And it's all because of Amani birth. I'm telling you. Subhanallah. And yourself, Faria. Subhanallah.
Jazakallah khair. I think it was you, subhanallah. You actually went through a lot, and anyone can do a course, anyone can sit in front of somebody else, but what effort they put into it, what they choose to take from it is entirely down to the mum. And mashallah, you said that you're not very saliha, but I feel mashallah you live up to your name, mashallah. May Allah protect you and your family and continue this Saleha journey.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. We'll end here, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining. And we'll share the sharing, the recording, inshallah. And if you have any questions, we'll put it in the group, inshallah. And we can discuss it more until the next birth story, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.